What is suppression versus repression? In this video, I'm going to be explaining the difference between the two, because when I was reading the depth psychology books myself and trying to differentiate between these two, it was difficult at first, but once I figured it out, it made clear sense, and it's very simple to distinguish between the two in your own mind. So let's jump right into the video. But before we do, if you want to get started with learning about depth psychology completely for free, I've put together a free guide called the Mind Mastery Blueprint. You can get it at the link in the description and also in the pinned comments. And if you want to take the first step on your individuation journey, I've put together a course which is only $8 called the 7-Day Decision Maker. You can check that out at danielcapello.com. So let's jump right into the video. So here we have a diagram of the human psyche, and we have the two main parts. The first part is the conscious mind. The second part is the unconscious mind. So the conscious mind is where you are now, the mind that you're in right now. And it's the part of your mind that you're in when you're awake. Anytime that you're awake, that's the part of the mind that you're in. This is the part of your mind where your 4 conscious functions exist and are constantly changing. The 4 functions are sensation, intuition, feeling, and thinking. So as an example, your sensation function tells you that something is there. So I can see and I can touch this whiteboard, for example. The word whiteboard, though, that's actually a thought. The thinking function tells you what something is. So it's a whiteboard. The thing that I'm sensing, that I'm seeing and touching, is a whiteboard. Your feeling function tells you whether something is agreeable or disagreeable, meaning whether you want to accept or reject it, whether you like it or you don't like it. So I might see this whiteboard, see that there's an object there, touch it, I can touch, I can feel it, I can touch and I can see there's something there. Then my thinking function tells me what that thing is. It's a whiteboard, it's plastic, it's the color white. Then my feeling function might be positive or negative towards this object, this thing. And lastly, the 4th function of consciousness is intuition. Intuition is just your gut feelings and your hunches. So let's just jump right back into the diagram. Those 4 functions are constantly operating in your conscious mind. This is the mind that you're in right now, the mind you're in when you're awake. The ego is you inside your conscious mind. So even though your conscious functions are constantly operating, you're not consciously connected to all of them all at the same time. What's consciously connected to you inside your mind? That you inside your mind, in depth psychology, we call the ego. Now, the other part of your mind is the unconscious. The unconscious is just everything else. Everything that's not your conscious mind is your unconscious. These are all the memories that you've ever had. You're not always thinking about them. The dreams, fantasies, nightmares, when you daydream and have your imagination goes crazy, and these images go through your mind. These images come from the unconscious. So your unconscious mind is everything else. And just as a quick example of understanding your unconscious mind, every memory that you've ever had is in your unconscious mind. So at different times, you might recall a memory. You might remember something. And you might do that consciously, like you might think or try and remember a specific moment or event. Or you might, and what happens is when you do that, the memory that comes up into your mind comes from your unconscious. And also, and you bring it up consciously. You use your conscious mind to bring that memory up. What can also happen is that we just might randomly see something, sensation. We might randomly think something, that's your thinking function. We might have a random feeling, that's your feeling function. Or you might have a different intuition. Intuition is a bit different, but I won't go into explaining how it works in this video. But you might have an intuition also that can bring a memory up too. And so those 4 functions can also randomly bring memories up. Like you might see a photo of your old school, or you might see a photo of some friend, or you might hear a song that you've heard before, and it might bring up these memories. And you're not consciously doing that. So memories can come up consciously or unconsciously. And where they come from is the other part of your mind known as the unconscious. So what we're talking about when we're looking at suppression and repression is actually linked to your personality and your conscious identity. I'll just fix this diagram really quick. So over the course of your life, these 4 functions develop and change, and they actually form what is your conscious identity, what you perceive as your personality, who you are. So when you introduce yourself to somebody, you're going to say, I'm this, I'm that, I'm these qualities, and I'm not these qualities. I believe these things, and I don't believe these other things. These are my values, and these are things that I perceive as bad values. This is like our conscious perception of ourselves, our conscious identity. And over the course of our lives, this changes. Now, what happens is, from a very young age, our personality develops in different ways. So let's just say, even from just being a young toddler, you might steal a cookie from the cookie jar and then lie about it. And so these are two qualities of your personality, which is dishonesty, or like when you're thieving, and then also lying. So let's just say that these are, what happens in that situation normally is that the parent or the society that you're in is going to have values which the parent will then impose onto you. So the parent will tell you, don't steal, don't lie. These are bad qualities, negative qualities that are not perceived as valuable in society, and so they're pushed from society through your parents or through whoever you're the dependent of growing up, and they pushed onto you. Whatever society you're in, these positive and negative qualities are kind of taught to you from a very young age. And so what happens is, let's just take this example of lying. Lying is perceived as a negative quality of the personality. And let's just take the opposite of lying, which is, for example, honest. So as we're going through life, we develop our personality in this particular way. And what normally happens is that positive qualities and positive ideas are connected to what's called your ego personality, which is you inside your mind and your conscious perception of yourself. And the negative qualities are either suppressed or repressed. And so there's a difference there. And in this video, that's exactly what we're going to be going into, is the difference between how these negative qualities are managed by your psyche. So let's just look straight at this example. This is the mind of somebody who has developed a very common personality kind of setup in modern society, or in most of Western society, where in that kind of society, being an honest individual is valued. Being somebody who is, the honest, hardworking person is what's generally this idea that's valued in that society. And so what happens is, as we're growing up, we want to attribute and connect the quality of being honest to our personality, our ego personality, us inside our minds. And what happens is, the opposite quality of lying, being deceitful, being dishonest, whatever, we'll just stick with the word lying to explain the negative quality for this video, but it can be any negative quality. That quality is pushed away. It doesn't want to be connected to the ego. Like, a great example is when you're going to meet somebody new and you introduce yourself. My name's Daniel Capello. So am I going to say, hey, nice to meet you, my name's Daniel Capello, I'm a liar, I'm a thief, I lie, I steal, I'm dishonest, I'm a bad person? No, you don't generally consciously connect negative qualities to your own ego personality. It's quite a difficult thing to do, and most people only kind of develop that level of consciousness later in life. So what actually normally happens is, we just say, my name's Daniel, I'm an honest, hardworking, loyal, good person, right? We talk about all the good stuff because that's what is conscious. We're mostly unconscious of all the negative parts of our personality that do exist. They're just either suppressed or repressed. So the first thing that normally happens is, when we're very young, we develop this situation where the negative qualities are actually repressed and they're completely unconscious. So as you can see here, the negative quality is completely unconscious and it's split off from the conscious mind. Whereas in the example of suppression, we still have a connection. Even though this quality is unconscious, we still have a connection to the ego. So let's just take a look at repression first. Repression is where the quality, the negative quality, let's just say it's lying, is totally split off from consciousness. So when you're a young child, you might be 5 or 6 or 12 or 15, the quality of being honest is part of your personality. You're an honest kid. You're a good kid. You're an honest kid. And lying is something that becomes unconscious. And this is normally, lying is probably not actually the best example because it's not extreme enough. If you go further into it, it's like, what are the qualities which are least desired in society is, murder or, being someone who's like a disloyal, like a betrayer, someone you can't trust, untrustworthy, those qualities. And so these qualities are the ones that are kind of unconscious when the personality is developing. And so when as you're going through life at a young age, these qualities are completely split from consciousness and they're experienced outside. So what that means is, I'm a good person and the bad people are out there. I specifically remember this for myself. I was like, I think 11 or 12 years old, and I became an altar server in the church, and I thought I was this good, perfect kid. I was obviously young and innocent, and all the bad people are out there, the thieves and the criminals and the bad people, they're out there. And so what happens is that's what happens when the negative qualities of human consciousness are completely split from consciousness and they're existing only in the unconscious mind of the individual. Those qualities are then projected outside, and that means that they're experienced as something that's outside. And that's why you get, from a young age, even a lot of people actually still perceive, the idea of criminality or evil or these bigger, deeper negative qualities, which are attributed to the human personality, as not them. They're just other people. It's never us. It's never me. It's always somebody else. And obviously, I'm not encouraging. Definitely don't do anything criminal because of this video. But the point here is the quality. Because when you look at somebody who is a criminal or a bad person, at the end of the day, they're still an individual human being with positive and negative qualities, just like you. And, you can easily find yourself on the other side of the fence, so to say, and see and experience other people looking at you as some negative quality, as the bully or the bad person or the liar or the betrayer. It's often in things we see in relationships where it's like someone cheats on another person or is promiscuous, and that's not a valued quality in society or positive quality. And there's all these different other things, maybe like manipulative or Machiavellian, deceitful, whatever. These are things that qualities which are perceived as negative and split off from consciousness, and then when we experience them in other people, what happens is we project them outside, and we think we're good people, and we're not that we're not, but we think that we're perfect. We don't think that any bad qualities belong to us, and that we would never do that, and that is not who I am. And that's just, it's not entirely true, because you're only normally as good as the situation kind of allows you to be. But that's not actually true either. Really what it is that the human psyche contains all these positive and negative qualities in it. That is the truth. That is the truth of the psyche. So whether or not you're conscious of them doesn't mean that they don't exist. And so what we have in suppression is, all those negative qualities I spoke about, they do exist. Manipulation, evil, thievery, like whatever it is, lying, deceit. Every negative quality does exist in the human psyche. The thing is that those qualities are just not consciously understood. They're not consciously connected to the ego personality. And what actually happens is those qualities are just simply lived out unconsciously. So it means that literally people will be manipulative, lie, steal, cheat, all those things when they think they're a perfect good person, and they'll do it unconsciously, meaning just they're not aware of it. They haven't connected those qualities to consciousness, and they're living those qualities out unconsciously. And the biggest place that we normally see this happen is with the people that they shadow project onto. So for example, it's okay to cheat a scammer. It's okay to steal from an evil person. It's okay to be manipulative towards a criminal. It's okay. It's these excuses that we use to justify why we're still good people, even though we're literally doing evil. In the process, in the process of doing evil, we have this perception of ourselves as still good. It's the biggest problem of existence and reality is human repression, and then also suppression. Suppression less so, but it's still the biggest problem of literally the age that we live in. And so this is repression. Is where the unconscious contents are completely split off from consciousness, and they're experienced outside, like 100% outside, as if this is we can take the example of lying. It doesn't really hit that hard because pretty much everybody knows they're not perfect and they lie sometimes. But we take something more extreme. Let's just say disloyal. like disloyal in a romantic relationship. A lot of people think that, you know, I would never cheat on my partner. I would, you know, that's something that a lot of people think. So if we take that, then what happens is, let's just say this quality is totally unconscious of being disloyal. It's projected outside. And so there are all these other people out there who cheat, who are cheaters, who are disloyal, but I'm not. I'm a perfect loyal partner, and I've never cheated in my life, and I never will cheat in my life. And that's just unconsciousness. And then it becomes okay to treat those people as different, to treat them in an evil way or in a different way that you would treat a loyal person. And then you end up doing evil unconsciously, living out all these other evil parts of your personality, which is split off from consciousness. So now we go to suppression. And suppression is very similar, except what happens is the ego develops a connection to the negative quality. So this is where lying is actually a really good example, which is why I chose it for this one. So in this case, we all know that we're liars. However, we still perceive that quality as a negative quality, and we don't want it to be consciously part of our personality. We want to be honest people. We want to be good people. We want to do the right thing, whatever. And so the negative quality of lying is still pushed away, pushed into the unconscious and split from consciousness. However, there's still a connection there, because we know that we still know that we lie. We know that we're a liar, and that we have the quality of lying. It exists in our personality. Everyone's told a lie before. And what we do is we try and push that away. We don't want it to be part of consciousness, but we haven't totally split it off from consciousness, where we actually perceive that everybody out there is liars and I'm not a liar, or I'm honest, right? So it's not totally split off from consciousness. There is still a connection. However, it is still an unconscious content, because you're pushing it into the unconscious by trying so hard to be honest. And this is where you develop an imbalance, and that's why we call it suppression, because you're consciously suppressing a quality. So what happens in this case is that the ego suffers the negative quality, which is still part of its personality. So in order to make sure that they don't lie, they'll develop systems and discipline, and there'll be these ideas that are built around this suppression of this lying quality, where I'm an honest person and I know that sometimes I lie and I can lie, but the key here is to always notice when you say yes but in your own mind. It's showing you that you're suppressing a quality. Yes, yes, but. So, yes, I am a liar. I do lie, but I haven't lied for 20 years. I've always been honest in all my business dealings. I've always told the truth. It's just yes, but it's just garbage. It's nonsense, really. It's just it's an excuse. It's just another way to. It's the language that we use when we're describing a quality that we suppressed. And so, when you make someone conscious of the quality they've repressed, they normally just attack you, and it's not fun. When you make someone conscious of the quality they've repressed, it's normally like excuses, yes, but try and talk your way out of it, that kind of thing. So what happens is that they develop these, in depth psychology, we call it asceticism, where they have these, they suffer the negative quality of their personality with systems, with discipline, and by punishing themselves for living out the quality. So for example, they might tell a lie, and then they might, not eat for a day. Or like they might tell a lie and then force themselves to be honest the next 100 things they say, no matter what happens. Like they must always tell the truth. And this is suppression, where they're conscious of the quality. It's just still pushed away, perceived as negative, and it's suppressed. And what happens in this case is that the content is still connected to consciousness. And what happens is after suppressing for a longer period of time, the energy charge of that content builds up in consciousness. Because what's actually happening is that in order to push this quality away, it requires energy from the ego, what's called conscious libido, energy of your conscious mind. So it requires, when you're pushing something away, it requires energy, it requires force. And the same thing happens when you're pushing away an unconscious content in your own mind, or a negative content in your own mind. When you're trying so hard not to be something, you have to try not to be that thing, because that thing is part of your nature, it's part of your psyche. It does exist as part of the whole psyche, the whole self, which is you. This circle represents the self. The self contains the unconscious and the conscious, which is all parts of your personality. So what happens is, as you push that quality away, the energy charge in the unconscious builds up, and eventually it will rise up, and that content will just take hold of you. The most obvious example that I see for this one is like binge eating with people who suppress. It can be a quality and also an instinct, which is a bit different, but it's okay. Let's just talk about qualities for now. So let's just say they suppress the quality of like gluttony, or like being ravenous, like just being like an animal, just eating everything. That's perceived as like a negative quality. When you know, it's perceived that, oh, fat people are fat. Being fat is negative. Being obese is negative, and the qualities that lead you to become that are also negative. So when they're oppressed, then you know, you might start your diet and go from eating cheeseburgers and soft drink to, you know, eating one broccoli leaf a day and do a water cleanse. I laugh because I've literally done that. Hilarious. And I think I lasted 3 days before this unconscious content rose up such a high energy charge. It just took hold of consciousness, and I just was just ravenously eating food. And so this is just one example of suppression is when or repression. Repression can happen the same way. It's just a bit different because you're not consciously pushing that attitude away. Like when you're starting a diet, you're consciously saying, okay, look, I've eaten too much. I'm too gluttonous and ravenous, whatever it is. I need to push that quality away and only, you know, eat properly or whatever it is. And so that's when the energy charge builds up. When you're experiencing suppression, you're not consciously pushing that quality away. You're not consciously suffering the quality. Because when you're on that diet for that water cleanse, whatever it is, for 5 days, that you're suffering. You're suffering by pushing the quality that wants to come up. You know, you see a cheeseburger, you see French fries, you smell some fried food, and you want to just eat it. That's this part of your personality. But then you push that away. You suffer not living that quality out. You suffer not living the quality which you perceive as the only negative out in your own life. And then the more you do that, the energy charge will generally build up in the unconscious. And then at a moment of weakness, when you're tired or when you have low conscious libido, when the energy in your conscious mind, when the energy charge here is lower than the energy charge of the unconscious content, that's when it will rise up and overtake you, because you can no longer suppress it. The energy charge required to push it away is too low, and the energy charge of that unconscious content can overwhelm you. So that's what happens in suppression. And also what happens is, normally when that energy charge gets higher, you'll start projecting more too, similar to repression here. Because what happens is, you know, I've done this myself. I start a diet and I'm 1 day into my diet and I start telling everybody that they're fat and that they need to go on a diet and they should do this and they should do this and they should do what I'm doing. And that's just one of the consequences of suppression. So this is a really interesting subject on like the economy of psychological energy. Super cool subject, and it can get pretty dense and complex. But I just wanted to make this quick video explaining the difference between these two. And the difference is just simple. In repression, the negative contents or the unconscious contents are completely split off from consciousness and completely perceived outside. In suppression, there is still a connection to the unconscious content and the ego. There is still a connection there, and the ego suffers that unconscious content consciously, normally using discipline, asceticism, or systems in order to keep that negative content away from consciousness. And what systems do, and asceticism and discipline, when done correctly, is that it requires much less conscious energy to maintain the suppression. And it does that in many different ways. I won't get into it here. However, I do explain it in a bit more depth inside my course, The 7-Day Decision Maker. It's only $8, and it's the most insane thing I've ever made. It's so cheap just because I want everybody to be able to access it all around the world. So if you're interested in actually taking the next step in your depth psychology journey, and you want to understand how all your decisions are made and how to find your personal destiny, the link will also be in the description and you can check it out there. also at danielcapella.com. It'll be there too. So anyway, thanks for watching. And if you want to get started completely for free in your depth psychology journey, you can also grab the free Mind Mastery Blueprint. It only takes 5 minutes to read, and it gives you a brief kind of breakdown of all the ideas that you need to understand your mind, just really quickly. So anyway, thanks for watching. If you like this video, click subscribe because I'm posting new videos every single day. And also click like because it helps other people to find the video and to learn this cool stuff. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you in tomorrow's video.